Hello everyone, welcome to Master Mentors current undercurrent session. Today in today's discussion will be involved around the social boycott, its various manifestations and the legal obligations. Now why this topic? Simply because there was a news today in the Indian Express where a Pune based woman from the Kanjarbat community and her family have alleged that they are facing a social boycott after she refused to let the communities, or what you can say, Jat or the caste panchayat, resolve a property dispute. Now, friends, many a times what happens is that when we prepare for the social issues in the general studies paper 1, we study the caste system a lot, then we study various aspects of the caste, but we don't study the applied part. And that applied part, rather than saying an applied part would be a wrong word. We should being study we need to study specifically, and in that specific study the social boycott is there. Okay, so today in today's session we will be discussing about the social boycott. Specifically, again, those who have joined lately, there was a news in today's Indian Express where a Pune-based woman from the Kanjabat community and her family have alleged that they are facing a social boycott. Even before what you can say, the corona period started, we came across that certain communities or certain families were boycotted. So social boycott, even though it is not a new phenomenon, but we need to understand how does it manifest into various other things, and with that manifestation what are the legal obligations or what are the constitutional provisions to avoid the social boycott. In simple Marathi we call it samajik bahishkar, but this is not a legal thing. So today we are going to basically discuss this topic. Now, what is a social boycott? The social boycotts are simply a form of socio-economic extrajudicial punishment. So one important point, the first point that you should come into your mind while defining a social boycott is that it is a form of socio-economic extrajudicial punishment. Why extrajudicial? Because this is not given by the judicial process in India or by the courts or something like that. These are apart from the courts or apart from the judicial procedure as established by the Indian Constitution, and these may be in the form of social or economic repercussions. So these four words should be there when you are trying to define a social boycott. So what is it? It is a socio-economic extrajudicial punishment that is imposed on individual whom caste panchayats believe to have transgressed certain social mores or diktats. Social mores, we can say, mores is like the norms or the rules and regulations kind of thing. So here when we are discussing about this, if you remember, in many of the movies even is so the social boycott has been depicted. Specifically if you take the example of Sairat, there is one scene at the last when the Persha's father is in front of his all his community, slaps on his face and says that, okay, I have done my mistake, but now the punishment should not be given to my daughter because no one is ready to marry. So it is not only in the higher caste, but it is also existing in the lower caste. Rather than using the word lower caste, in the certain castes. So there are caste panchayats which basically think that they certain people or certain individuals of that caste have violated the norms and regulations of that society, of that caste. So that's why they are being boycotted from the society. Now boycott has been used a lot in Indian context, we all know, the Swadeshi and all those movements, but here the boycott is social, which manifests into a socio-economic extrajudicial punishment. The social boycott is a weapon used in rural and, to certain extent, even in urban communities to reinforce the hierarchies and the power structure. So in our society, the caste system that we have seen, we haven't seen, we have seen that in other classes. In the caste system, I tried to we define caste as a kind of, what you can say, a privilege or a deprivation. Caste, the basis of caste is the hierarchies. Like for example, Brahmins are at the top, then are the Kshatriyas, then are the Vaishyas, and then are the Shudras. So there are various hierarchies. So this kind of social boycott, basically they try to maintain or reinforce the social hierarchies. Okay, either whatever the hierarchies are existing, they will try to preserve that hierarchies or the power structure. Like for example, there are certain, for example, Khap Panchayat. In a Khap Panchayat, what it is, there are people who form the panchayats, mostly from the upper caste, and these people will decide, okay, what is good for the society and what is bad for the society. Simply. So what does in a process, what is happening, that these people who don't have any relation to anyone, who don't think of the context that we are living into, like when we are speaking about liberty and all those things, they will not be thinking there. But these people are given certain power, and that power and the hierarchy, they will try to maintain it by giving some diktats. Okay, they will try to dominate it. So the more apt term for it can be ostracism, where basically we can say like someone is banished from the society. Like just imagine, it happens many a times. Like for example, with your friends and all those things, we try to bullying happens sometimes. We just think that okay, this is not my friend, so we just try to make him out of our what you can say, our domain. So when this is happening at the social level, the social boycott becomes a weapon. Okay, weapon to reinforce the hierarchies that I am superior, you are lower, and all those kind of thing. The more apt term for this can be the ostracism. That is an important word again, where an individual is banished from society, if not physically, then from all public places and socially. Like for example, in Indian cases, if someone does an under what you can say intercaste marriage, he will not be accepted in his society. Like let's say an upper caste boy marries a lower caste girl, and he will not be accepted in his family. He will not be invited for what you can say any functions at home. He will not be invited at other events at home. So this is what, even though you cannot directly do anything physically, you are not banishing him from the society, but you are not allowing that person to be the part of the social gatherings and all those things. So in a way, social boycott acts or manifests in altogether very different ways. So that's why I say the discussion is revolving around the manifestations of the social boycott. So what does this social boycott manifest into? The first of all, it leads to social exclusion from religious ceremonies and gatherings. I gave you an example. Like many, you may have even your friends who have been married into, who had done an intercaste marriage, and they are not invited at their homes, or their relatives will not invite them, or they are not subjected to religious ceremonies or gathering, so they will be excluded overall. I have some friends of mine whose family members don't invite him, specifically because he has done an intercaste marriage. So that social exclusion from religious ceremonies and gatherings is one of the manifestation of the social boycott. The second one is physical and social segregation and isolation. Physical and social segregation and isolation. Now, what do we mean by this? Now, for example, let's say a particular person is there, is not following the norms of the society. Then what does the society decide into? Okay, let's not deal with him. People will not talk with him. People will not get him involved. They will segregate him. They will isolate him. Okay, there will not be any communication on the part of society with that individual. So that happens. So that is the second manifestation of the social boycott. Then obviously with it, what it leads to, it leads to denial of equal opportunities and the rights. Simply because of this, what the outcome is outcome is very natural, and the natural outcome is what? Denial of equal opportunities and the rights. Restrictions on their social and physical mobility. Like certain people will not be allowed. Okay, you are not allowed, supposed to pass through this road. Like there was a news 2 3 years back somewhere in I think in Gujarat or Uttar Pradesh, I don't remember exactly the state, where a lower caste person was not allowed to take his what you can say marriage procession from the upper caste society's area. Okay, or even if you have seen that ashram series, in that it is there that there is a restriction on the mobility, that you cannot pass through this. Or even today in many parts in Maharashtra also, or in India, we find that Dalits or the lower caste people are not allowed into the upper caste people's area or the region and all those things. So those restrictions, social and the physical mobility, are also the manifestations of the social boycott, then it leads to the community-wide gag orders. When I'm saying community-wide gag orders means what? That there will be a ban. For example, let's say XYZ family has been socially boycotted. Now, all people are not agreeing that they should be boycotted. But when there is a community-wide gag orders, what these people will say, those who will deal with them will also face the social boycott. Okay, so obviously what does it do? It restricts the other peoples from interacting with them. Understanding? Okay, like let us say, like I am a person and I have been, my caste has given the orders that I should be boycotted. Now there is one friend of mine who doesn't believe in the boycott and now he wants to interact with me. But then the society at large or the caste or whatever the system that is existing we will provide an order what if you deal with him you will also be boycotted. So that means that is what we call as the community wide gag orders. Then obviously denial of employment can happen. Like in India, it is not always that we have an organized sector. There is an unorganized sector. Large number of people are involved in the unorganized sector compared to the organized sector. So obviously, people will not be given the jobs and all those things. Mostly in the village area or the rural areas, people are dependent on the employment on some higher community peoples and all those things. Like if social boycott is allowed, has been issued on a certain family, then that person will not get any employment in the farms of the people and all those things. So that again, denial of employment, that again relates to denial of equal opportunities and the right. Our stoppage of sale of necessities of life, including the food. Like they will not allow the people to get रेशन वाले को बोलेंगे कि नहीं आपने रेशन नहीं देना है, दुकानदार बोलेगा ये नहीं देना है वो नहीं देना है. So there can be a lot many things and there are a lot many things. So these are just some of the examples of the manifestations that we can witness when it comes to the social boycott. But it is an insidious and unjust form of discrimination. Understand, it is a form of discrimination at the core, and common that eventually ends in the slow starvation and isolation of persons subjected to it. So at large, what is it happening? That it is a discrimination that leads to starvation and isolation of the person involved. Understanding? So it is, again I am repeating, it is a form of discrimination which leads to slow starvation and isolation of persons. Okay, it is socio-economic extrajudicial punishment. So that is how we define social boycott. In UPSC, it is very important that you know the definitions properly. And because of that, I have given you the definitions over here, and I will also hand out you some of the PDFs related to it. But this is one of the things when we are studying the caste system, in that if we have to study a particular topic, then social boycott will play an important, social boycott is a significant topic. Now, why do people, basically, rather than calling it objectives and aims, I was not getting actually the word to be used for what you can say, the objectives of the social boycott. As why do people apply these kind of things? Okay, apply these kind of things, that is the social boycott. Simply, as I was not having the word, I have used the words objectives and aim, but they relate it somewhere or the other. And it is what the first one is, social boycott acts as an instrument of exclusion to cause high levels of deprivation. So if it is like, if you don't agree with our norms, social norms, if you don't agree with our system, then obviously we have a tool with us, and that is the social boycott. So that will lead automatically to the exclusion. So to what we can say, directly or indirectly, to apply the pressure or to maintain the existing structure, the social boycott acts. Okay, it acts as an instrument of exclusion to cause high level of deprivation. It excludes the group's ability to live a life of dignity. Very, very significant. Like, let us say, in India right now, it is not that prevalent, but when the AIDS was becoming prevalent, AIDS situation was very high. What we were finding that the person suffering from the AIDS was boycotted, and not only that person, but whole of his family was boycotted. So what is that? Like, okay, one person has some disease like AIDS or tuberculosis, or some cancer or something. Or even in Corona's period, what people used to do, they used to like, okay, you are not supposed to live. Their family members were not allowed to live. So excluding groups' ability to live a life of dignity is again another important thing that is achieved through a social boycott, which is not justified in any way. So you take away the dignity of an individual. Remember that. Then there is a denial of equal rights and opportunities that dominant groups enjoy. Obviously, as I told you, the social boycott is meant for maintaining the social hierarchies and all those things. So obviously, it will deny the equal rights and opportunities. It will deny the equal rights, whatever the rights, and because these people don't believe in the rights, first of all. So if they don't believe in the rights, obviously they don't consider people equal, first of all. So they don't believe in the equality before the law or rule of law, and obviously not the opportunities. It is like you may have seen heard about the Khap panchayats. Even if a lower caste person becomes a doctor or he becomes an IAS, still he may not get that status of like the dominant community may think, okay, तू बन गया तो बन गया ठीक है, लेकिन हमारे लिए क्या है? So ये जो, you must have even seen the Article 15, like whatever you become, you may get educated and all those things, but that kind of social hierarchy, every time the dominant group will try to put to exert it on the lower castes, okay, or the lower sections of the society will be the better way. And it happens at every level. Understand, nowadays caste mein to hai hi hai, obviously, but it is also existing at the economic level, where if you don't have that economic power, people will deny you of the equal rights and opportunities. Okay, now further moving from that, deprive excluded individuals to participate in basic political, economic, and social functions. Now, this is what does social boycott do? It deprives the basic things, very, very basic political, economic, and social function. Like, obviously, let us say if a person is boycotted, okay, if a person is social boycott has been applied on family, what is the point in he going for a vote or something? Already in a democracy, vote is there so as to be there, so as to exercise its one's means. But obviously, he is not able to fulfill his own means. So how he will be thinking about the society at large? So in a way, political, economic, and social functions are deprived. So individuals are not allowed to participate in this thing. So these are just what you can say the outcomes of the social boycott, and that is why it survives since a very long time. Now the history of the social boycott in India is not a new, or it is not of recent origin. The social boycott has been there from generations to generation. The point is why it is existing even today. Understanding the point is why it exists even today. Okay, and from that point of view, up till now only the definition part was required for us, but after this we will be seeing most of the legal alleged legality and legitimacy of all those things. These parts here we will have certain Supreme Court judgments and all those things, so this part will become an important from the exam point of view. Now the caste, let us begin with the caste panchayats. Legality and legitimacy. Now caste panchayats, now even today, what you can say, these are the biggest perpetuators of the hate crime, which are unofficial parallel judicial system, and they play a very significant role across the India. Understand? Now in Maharashtra, you may not see the caste panchayats, but caste panchayats in Maharashtra are not existing at the level of upper, or in the upper caste, but they are existing in certain tribes. For example, there are caste panchayat, Jat panchayat of this Pardi community. Okay, Pardi community, Bhil community. Okay, they are still having this caste panchayat. But in the northern India, it is altogether different, where the upper caste basically is having one panchayat, which they generally call it to be a khap panchayat, which acts as a completely unofficial parallel judicial system. And it plays such a significant role that if someone tries to get out of it, then obviously what happens is that no one can even get out of it. Simply, sorry for that, no one can even get out of it, because if you don't follow the caste panchayat, then you are boycotted, and if you are boycotted, then you are deprived of every other thing. So many a times in the northern India, people either they have to follow it or they don't have any other option. And because of the politics that is involved, like for example, the upper caste politics in the northern India is very dominant. They rule the, like even today when you if we take out to the, if we go into the figures, and if we decide that okay, in every legislative assembly of the state, okay, let us find out what is the number of the people from what is the number of MLAs from the higher sections or upper caste, then you will find that the upper caste number is higher in every state. So if these numbers politically also they are supported in some, all the systems basically, the police or these organizations, they are supported directly or indirectly. So these panchayats have become too dominant. And there are various examples, like in 2013-14, there either in 2013 or 14, there was a direct question in UPSC also about the Khap panchayats, because they were inducing such kind of judgments which led to murder of certain people. Okay, like a murder, like a lower, a girl from upper caste is marrying a person from an lower caste, then they both were murdered. So these kind of extrajudicial treatments were given. So these are biggest perpetuators of the hate crime, and unofficially they are parallel judicial system. Now these parallel judicial system, how to get rid of this? Yes, honor killings and all those things, these were done by the Khap panchayats, and they like the system works in this way. You can see that Akrosh movie is an interesting movie, which is actually a copy of Mississippi Burning. Mississippi Burning is a movie, American movie, which speaks about the atrocities of the black, and that Akrosh is altogether scene to scene copied. But just here, from their point of, in Mississippi Burning, it is the black people, and over here, it is the caste system. And it shows you completely how the system works. Understand how the system from the upper part, like from the police structure to a lower level, lowest of the constables and the members of the Khap Panchayat, how they are related to each other, that is being shown in that. Or even if you have seen the Article 15 is very recent one, you will find that one of the characters in Article 15, he was belonging from the lower caste, but still he did not die. In the initial stages, he always kept him apart from this. He was like, let it happen, it is going to happen. Okay, so these type of institutions, they have become very dominant in India, and specifically in northern India, and that's why the caste based violence is more seen in these regions, specifically in the northern India. These are the social institutions of exclusion. Simple words, in simple words, these are the social institutions of exclusion which play a vital role in the imposition and perpetuation of social boycotts economically, socially, culturally, and politically from every term, because they are politically powerful, because they are from the upper caste. Culturally, obviously, they decide that our culture is the supreme one. Socially, obviously, they are socially, or caste is the legitimate legitimate caste is providing them the legitimacy, and economically, obviously, because most of these are the land owning communities. So in a way, you have to think this institution not in a lighter tone, but in the context that how powerful these institutions are, that after 70 years of India's independence and after many years of adoption of Indian constitution, we are talking about these institutions again and again. Okay, so that only makes us realize how significant they are. The power of these caste panchayats lies in the upper caste identities. Understand, a person from lower caste obviously will not have any place in the Khap panchayats. That is the very, what you can say, logical one. So upper caste identity. Now upper caste identity is what? Like caste gives you a privilege, or caste either gives you a privilege or it deprives you. Okay, and privilege is based on what? How does the caste get legitimacy? Like caste is legitimized on the basis of religious and the biological theory. Like as I always used to say, if Brahma is the creator and Brahma has created the caste, then who are we to question Brahma, right? Or even in Manusmriti, if it is written, even in text, religious text, it is written, and who are we to question the caste system? Like many people will say, ये भगवान का बनाया हुआ है, तो हम कौन होते हैं क्वेश्चन करने वाले? तो ये ऐसा नहीं है, भगवान का बनाया हुआ है, ये कहने का मतलब ये है कि हम इस आइडेंटिटी को कंटिन्यू रखने वाले हैं. Okay, so of their members who are predominantly male village elders, obviously many a times होता है हर गांव में होते हैं. These are the people who say हम लोग experience है, हमारा तजुर्बा है and all those things. They are seen mostly as the gatekeepers of cultural, religious and caste identities in rural India. So again, most of these things are in the northern India, but in Maharashtra's case, again, as we are looking into this topic specifically, as the news appeared with regards to Pune, here basically in any communities like Pardi community or the Bhil community, here the village, the elder members of the community form the part basically. Upon learning that individual belonging to lower caste or those belonging to upper caste have transgressed social and caste barrier, for instance, through intercaste marriage. Now, the intercaste marriage is something which will be questioned a lot because this is the only institution which can break the caste system. So obviously, intercaste marriages will not be allowed. Or the assertion of temple entry rights. Like I can tell you, I have seen an example. I'll give an example of my village itself, through which I ran a very, I actually revolted against that a lot. And he is a very famous person, but I would not take his name right now. He belongs to a big institution. And what did they do? Just how people try to stop the temple entry of Dalits into the temple. Now, what did they do in my village? In my village, there is a temple of God Ram, which is very ancient one. And what they tried to do is they tried to apply that sohra paddhat, like you have to first of all go through a bath, then you have to wear that cloth, and then only you will be allowed into a temple. But the hidden motive of them was, as we are applying these principles, so what will happen that Dalits will not get a temple entry into the temple. Whereas if you go in my village, every person, like from 5 to 6 kilometers the area, he will come every day, whatever caste may be there, but they believe into the god, and they will come and they will go into temple and they will just worship and they will return back. But to stop those people from entering into temple, they completely stop the movement of each and everyone into the temple. Like they cannot specifically particularly say that we will not allow Dalits. So what did they do? They stopped the entry of each and everyone. Now for that I fought at that time, and then we went through a lot of process and all those things legally, and but there was no need actually to go legally. But these kind of things do happen, that you create certain restrictions for the temple entry. Okay, like as in today's time, because there are certain acts and all those things, what you will create restrictions for that. These caste panchayats impose social boycotts on individuals involved, their families, and on their larger caste in the villages. So overall, that happens. So these are basically wherever we find that these things are happening, social boycott will be applied. Now, the Supreme Court of India has upheld that the individual liberty and right to choice are fundamental part of right to life under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. Now, this is again very important because we are again yesterday also I told you that we are discussing about love jihad and all those things, and here it is Article 21. I don't know what will be the legality of that when it goes into the court, but as of now the Supreme Court has upheld that the individual liberty and right to choice are fundamental part of right to life under Article 21. So there was one case, you don't need to remember the name of the case from the main point of view, but you can just mention simply, in one of the cases Supreme Court has categorically stated. So that should be the way of writing an answer. So use this Supreme Court reference where they have said that Shakti Vahini versus Union of India, the Supreme Court in a case dealing with honor killing, we all know what is honor killing, categorically held that these caste panchayats which are rooted in authoritarianism, first point, these are where are the roots of this panchayat or the caste panchayat? It is in the authoritarianism, that they consider that they have the authority on the society as a whole because of their caste identities or whatever other norms may be, and aim to uphold antiquated notions of restoring family and community honor. So rooted in authoritarianism, which are having the notion, which want to uphold the notions of family and community honor. मेरे खानदान का, मेरे dharm ka, mere religion ka, whatever it may be, do not have the right to impinge upon the right of individuals based upon any kind of moral or social philosophy or self-proclaimed evaluations. Categorically, Supreme Court has denied the Khap Panchayats any right, specifically, again I am mentioning, any right to pronounce a judgment. Okay, it held that the persons cannot be subjected to hostile or unsafe environments for lawful exercise of their rights as guaranteed by the Constitution of India. So in Indian case, Khap Panchayats, in case of honor killings or whatever it may be, you cannot override the Article 21 of the Indian Constitution, which speaks about the individual liberty and the right to choice. Okay, you cannot just on the basis of your authority that comes from the caste and on the notions of or certain kind of moral or social philosophical discourse, you cannot just put into and start saying that okay, this is not allowed, that is not allowed. Okay, this is not there. In India, the Constitution is supreme. So that case with today's, if you have read the newspaper Indian Express, in that news, the members of that family were not ready to agree on the judgments given by the caste panchayats, or they were not agree to involve the caste panchayat into distribution of property. So they were socially boycotted. So that FIR has been filed. Now, who are these people to get involved into this? Getting the people. If a particular family, whichever caste they may belong, they don't want their community's caste panchayat to get involved into the property distribution. So why should they be boycotted? And if they are boycotting, then it is illegal. Okay. And why it is illegal? Because in India, it is the Constitution which upholds and nothing else. Okay. Moving on. Now let us see, these slide is the most important slide. Okay. Remember this. Okay. This is the most important slide. India's, from the prelims point of view as well as from the mains point of view, what are the constitutional, that can be a direct straightforward question, constitutional obligations regarding to protect the Dalits, or we can say the lower castes in India. And they are Article 14, law or obligations. I am saying there are various provisions for the upliftment of Dalits or the backward caste and all those things, backward classes and all those things. But the obligations specifically, they are there in the Article 14, 17 and 43 of the Indian Constitution. We all know what is Article 17. Article 17 abolishes the practice of untouchability, which originates from the belief that Dalits are impure, because untouchability in any form, okay, untouchability in any form is a punishable offense right now. And why we consider and why the practice of untouchability was there? Because of that theory specifically, that Dalits are impure by birth. Now, how can one person become impure by birth? This is something like a laughing stock. Okay, and we have been a laughing stock for the world, and in the world even there have been such kind of discriminations, but let's not worry about them, let's worry about ourselves. So Article 17 is one important thing which abolishes the practice of untouchability. Again, practices of untouchability in every possible form. It does not mean only the physical one, कि physically कि मैं touch नहीं करूंगा. It involves socially also. So social boycott is a part of untouchability itself, or a verbal kind of thing. मैं किसी को गाली दूं, ये भी, या फिर मैं discriminate करूं, ये भी एक untouchability का form होता है. So it is not only the physical form of untouchability that is banned by the Indian Constitution, and which originates from the belief that Dalits are impure by birth, and that an upper caste person who comes into contact with Dalits become impure himself. So that is the first point. I took Article 17 first because that directly relates to that practice. And then comes the substantive right to equality. Substantive right to equality means here the Article 14 is at a larger level. We all know it is not. It does not specifically relate with the caste. So that's why it has been given the second preference. Provides that all persons must be treated equally before the law and equal protection of law in regard of, we all know, the religion, race, caste, sex, and place of birth. So that is the Article 14, which is a substantive, which provides a substantive right to equality, where all people must be treated equally before the law, and an equal protection should also be given by the law. And then there is Article 43 of the Constitution in the directive principles of the state policy, which specifically calls on the state to promote the economic and educational interests of persons belonging to the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes in India, in addition to protecting them from social injustice and exploitation. And whenever sometimes or other we will have altogether a different discussion on the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe as to why this kind of classification is not justified in today's time. We need a more verticalization of further division of the caste to look into their empowerment. But as of now, remember the Article 43 of the Indian Constitution, which is there in the directive principle of the state policy. Now, the Constitution of India itself acknowledges the immense disadvantage and vulnerability that Dalits in the country face, and has therefore provided categorically that they must not be discriminated against either by the state or by an upper caste individual. So the discrimination should not be at any level, either at the individual's level or at the state level. Okay, both levels. So constitution, like for example, you cannot discriminate in a public place on the basis of caste. You cannot discriminate a person, you cannot restrict a person entering into a hotel or theater or any other temple of a temple which is a public place just because he belongs to a particular caste. So that is by the state has to, first of all, state should not discriminate. Rather than discrimination, state should protect the interest and individual interest from the interest that the individual's rights are not violated just because he belongs or he is being a part of certain caste. And that Supreme Court of India over the course of last 70 years upheld the rights of Dalit to special protection while acknowledging their historical exploitation and need to make reparation. It is very important. Like sometimes every time feel like who's we have to be responsible for that historical exploitation. Understand again, many a times we come across many friends of ours who say, how could I be held responsible for what has been done in the past? But my dear friend, you have to understand that it is not you as an individual. It has been the historical exploitation, just like what we call in climate change, right? In climate change, we blame the developed countries for their historical responsibilities. So in other ways, we have to do it over here also. Okay, so we have to take that responsibility. If we are not taking responsibility, then nothing can be achieved out of it. Okay, so these are the India's constitutional law obligation to protect the Dalits. I hope it is simple, and further we will move on. There are three significant cases that I wanted to bring in front of you, and one of them is the first case is regarding the case of state of Karnataka versus Appa Balu Ingle and others. You don't need to remember any name, but while teaching we have to take the name, so that's why I'm making. The Supreme Court held that whenever a fundamental right is violated by a private individual, it is the constitutional obligation of the state to ensure that such violation is prevented and to ensure that the fundamental rights of Dalit are respected. Very simple, a very important point. If there is a violation of fundamental right by a private individual, then it is the responsibility of the state to ensure that such violation is prevented. Let us say, like I am a person, it can be any person, like my fundamental right is violated, like someone practices untouchability, then it is the constitutional obligation of the government to look that my right should not be violated. For that, can you give me an example? Like we have Prevention of Atrocity. Why we have Prevention of Atrocities Act? That we have Prevention of Atrocities Act to ensure that it acts as a deterrent. If there is no deterrent, then what will be the point? Okay, why there is the Atrocities Act? Prevention of SC/STs Atrocities Act. It is there because you should not do that. So that is where the state is obliged to stop such kind of violations. I hope you are understanding that. Okay, and in the second case, in case of Manju Devi versus Omkarjit Singh Aluwalia, the Supreme Court recognized the insidious nature of the use of words such as Harijan and Dhobi that are used by upper caste to discriminate against the Dalits on the basis of their caste status. So now this is very important. Again, understand, region was the word which was given by Mahatma Gandhi. But nowadays, how do we use these words? Like dhobi, like chamar, like lohar, like kumbhar. All these words, what do we try to connote out of these words? I'm not using these words, okay, so don't get down to me. But in reality, how these words are there? Okay, these denote the caste, or they denote some kind of under treatment or maltreatment to a community. So basically, it should not be used in that nature. That has been said by the Supreme Court in that particular case. And in the next case, that is Safai Karmachari Andolan versus Union of India, the court recognized the practice of untouchability is a constitutional crime. Very, very important. You will not get this in your Lakshmi Kant. Okay, that it is a constitutional crime. If you write these two words, you are going to get that half or 1 mark extra in the examination. That is how we secure good marks in the mains. Okay, by using proper words. Getting, like, just imagine someone is reading your answer and you have written constitutional crime, and he is going to understand that you are having a proper understanding of the topic and you have read a lot. So understand, the practice of untouchability is a constitutional crime. We never hear about like a constitutional crime. But why it is called as an unconstitutional crime? Simply because in the Indian context, Article 17 at one side abolishes the untouchability. And if untouchability has been abolished and if it is followed again, then it is the crime against the Constitution. So it is a constitutional crime. That simple it is. Okay, if at one stroke, on 26 January 1950, we have abolished the untouchability, which was existing in India for thousands of years. So if that is practiced today or a day after that, then it is a crime against the Constitution. So that's significant it is, and one that must be eradicated by full implementation of law. Understand, be sensitive to the issues. You have paper 4 also. While the Supreme Court has in many instances stood as a guardian of Dalit rights, a law specifically addressing social boycotts in India would only aid in protecting Dalits in India. And here we come to the another point. Supreme Court has acted as a guardian to the rights of Dalit, but we are talking about the social boycotts. And in terms of social boycotts, there what we find is there are loopholes in the law, and those loopholes that we are going to study right now. Okay, any questions? Are you getting? समझ में आ रहा है? Okay, let's move ahead. Now let us see first of all what are the India's national legal obligations to protect Dalit. Again, understand, Article 17, exactly word to word I will use it. Article 17 says, untouchability shall be a punishable offense. Okay, the practice of untouchability shall be punishable by law. And that punishable law is by the 1989 Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribe Prevention of Atrocities Act. Many a times in villages you hear atrocity, atrocity. So that Atrocities Act is there. So that is the most important legislation outside the Constitution. See, Constitution is only stating it is punishable offense, but punishable offense by law. So that law has been created by the Parliament in 1989, and that law is Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribes Prevention of Atrocities Act, that criminalizes the abuse and humiliation of Dalits in India. Okay, there are two aspects into it that you need to understand properly. Criminalizes, so if there is certain thing, if a person is beating someone just because he is a Dalit, or around the caste lines he is beating someone, depriving something, so that is a criminal offense, so that is criminal abuse. But at the same time he is humiliating that person. That means he is taking away his dignity. मैं किसी को जाति के आधार पे गाली दे रहा हूं, so that is the humiliation of Dalits. Understanding? So that humiliation, both the things you have to understand. This act is, the objectives of the act are two. One, criminalizes the abuse, whatever the abuse in whatever form it may be. See, abuse are there. Like कोई भी किसी को पीटता है, रास्ते पे गाड़ी भी किसी ने ठोकी तो लोग उसको पीटने लगते हैं, बट पीटना वो कास्ट के बेसिस पे नहीं है. पर यहाँ पे जब कास्ट के आधार पे उसको पीटा जा रहा है, तो वो क्रिमिनल अब्यूज हो गया, वो जो है वो एट्रोसिटीज एक्ट में आ गया. So criminalizes the abuse when abuse is on the basis of caste. Understand, that is the most important thing. Abuse when it is based on the caste notions. And the second point is the humiliation of Dalits. Please just mute your mic. Someone's mic is off. Okay, that criminalizes the abuse and humiliation of Dalits in India. So that was the point that I was stressing on. The prohibited crimes under the Act themselves point to the kind of degrading treatment that Dalits have faced and continue to face in India despite 70 years of freedom that I have been saying. These crimes include, but are not limited to prohibitions. Okay, these crimes include, but does not mean that only these crimes. Like we, even after 70 years, we have to hear that Dalits have been made to walk naked on the streets. Haven't we heard the news in last 2 years? Bonded labor, like Dalits are made to work in certain ways. They have been bonded to work, having feces thrown into their premises. This is what worst you will want. Okay, so it is not limited to this, understand? Okay, these are just the examples of the crimes that are heinous crimes that are done in India. And again, I will repetitively say in the northern India, it exists. What can we say? Now, let us see what was Dr. Ambedkar's opinion on the social boycott. Now, Dr. Ambedkar was one of the first persons in modern India to address the violent oppression of lower caste by the upper caste in India. He recognized the power imbalance. Dr. Ambedkar recognized the power imbalance between the two groups and resources. So now why there is a one section is able to dominate on the other section? Simple logic, because there are difference of resources. One community is having resource, one community is not having resource. So if there is imbalance between the resources, so one will be bound, okay, to act according to what one says. And if it doesn't act, then you have things like social boycott. Okay, simple. And resources captured by the later made the practice of social boycotts almost a death sentence on the lower caste. Yes, it was. If you read the Dalit literature of 70s, 80s in Maharashtra, in Marathi, or in other languages also, then you will come across how what kind of atrocities were done on the Dalits in this period. And even today, many people have that, I don't know, still they have that kind sense of being an upper caste and all those things. This led him to insist that clauses criminalizing its practice to be including in the Government of India Act 1919. So many a times in Government of India Act 1919 we study, but in Government of India Act 1990 we do not study this point, that it was criminalized. The practices like this were criminalized in the Government of India of 1919. Okay, so remember that. So a majority of these clauses were later made a part of Protection of Civil Rights Act 1955. This act is even there today. आज भी ये act है. Remember, लिख के रखो. Protection of Civil Rights Act 1955, which specifically restrict the social boycott and all those things. But again, as I said, there are loopholes. So that's why it is continuing. This act specifically and extensively deal with the caste crimes related to untouchability and includes penalties for various forms of boycotts in housing, work for hire, rendering, or whatever kind of works. This act is rarely used in modern India and thus has fallen into disuse. Even there today, it is there, Protection of Civil Rights Act 1955, but it is rarely used. And what is used mostly is the Prevention of Atrocities Act. Now over here, I am giving you certain facts. Okay, like some people, some of you may debate to me because in Maharashtra, when the Maratha morchas were happening, one of the demands was to abolish the Atrocities Act. But then I will show you the figures, and then you can decide on yourself. And then there was one thing, given judgment given by the Supreme Court, which actually, rather than making it a deterrent, specifically, it created more problems. But just even today, I want to ask you that has the crime against or has the crime on the basis of caste stopped in India? Even if there is a single crime on the basis of caste, then still we need the law. If you say that, okay, the caste-based violence has altogether stopped in India, then fine. We will not need a law in itself. Then we can talk about not having an atrocities act. But if we are having a single crime which is based on the caste, then why shouldn't we have the act? That is the simple point. So the need, why there is a new need for new social boycott law in India, and this can be a direct question. Again, I am telling you, your typical notes and all those things, they do not include these topics, and UPSC knows them. So that's why how to take out a topic from certain news is what makes this, what I can say, important or interesting. The prevention, POA here means Prevention of Atrocities Act, defines and classifies social and economic boycotts as crimes. As I told you, there are two factors that make it unsuitable and inadequate to address the endemic nature of social boycotts in the state. So there is Prevention of Atrocities Act, fine, it defines social and economic boycott, but it is still not able to cater to the social boycott. So that's why we are speaking about having a new social boycott law in India. Let us see. There are 2 points specifically. The first point, the POA Act, or Prevention of Atrocities Act, has highly ineffectual piece of legislation that has failed to have significant impact on the reduction of atrocities against the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. India has now this point. The next point is important, that in spite of Act, large number of cases are also registered, but the conviction rate is very low. So if conviction rate is very low, that means that it is to act किस लिए किया गया था. Now there are other sections in the society which are saying that it is being abused. Okay, some will say abused, but the abuse cannot happen at 75%. Right? India has extremely low rate of crimes against conviction rates for the crimes against the least, standing at a dismissal 25.7% only. Okay, for scheduled caste, and 20.8%. So 80% are not going to be the false cases. Understand? It is just that the conviction, there are certain loopholes in the law that are not making it possible or simple one to convict someone of the crime. So that's why we need a new law. Okay. Additionally, the number of crimes against the scheduled caste have increased exponentially from 33,000 cases in 2008 to 40,800 cases in 2016. Why 16 specifically? Government का आता ही नहीं है, National Crime Record Bureau का report आएगा तब हम नए सिरे से बात करेंगे. So these are number of the cases that have increased. So cases का number तो कम नहीं हो रहा ना, indicating the ineffectiveness of Prevention of Atrocities Act. Now you all are mature people and you live in Maharashtra and you have a lot of debate, but just think these points rationally and then you will get to realize, like for example, what happens in Maharashtra. Like I have seen many of the cases even in my village where case is registered, a person is beaten just because of his caste. He is beaten, he goes to police station, files an Atrocities Act. The police person over there, he is linked to the village headman. He calls him, or the village people go to the police people or to the family of that person and they request him, okay, now jo ho gaya, abhi tum case wapas le lo ya fir chalne do waise. This happens, actually this happens in India. So that's why the cases happen. Tell me, why should a village headman, or why should people from the, if someone is beaten on the basis of caste, why should people go to him and ask him to take away the case? और the case का investigation नहीं हो रहा है. Provision क्या है Prevention of Atrocities Act में कि आपका जो investigating officer होगा वो DYSP के rank के नीचे का नहीं होगा. क्यों? क्योंकि इसमें independence चाहिए. लेकिन क्या वो हर बार follow किया जा रहा है? Why the conviction rate is so small? Who protects? At the same time, whenever there is a misuse of that act also, then who is misusing that? Okay, on who's saying people are misusing that act? So these all things contribute, and these all things again signify, as we are specifically speaking about the social boycott and the atrocities against the Dalits and the lower caste in India, we have to really look into the new law specifically. So moving further, the second point, and recently, one point that I wanted to mention, recently in Dr. Subhas Kashinath Mahajan versus the state of Maharashtra case, whereby the court prescribed automatic arrest and registration of cases against the predator. Like they said that Supreme Court gave a blow, where Supreme Court said that if there are atrocities Act के अंदर डायरेक्ट जो अरेस्ट होने वाला था वो अरेस्ट अभी नहीं होगा, ऐसा सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने अपनी जजमेंट में कहा था. लेकिन फिर उसके बाद अमेंडमेंट किया और अमेंडमेंट से वो जगह पे ला दिया. सो वो राइजिंग ब्रूटलिटी एंड मिसट्रीटमेंट्स ऑफ द दलित्स है, मतलब pacifying this act itself is a brutality, understand? So we cannot act in that way. So the second point, that is Prevention of Atrocities Act, while addressing atrocities against scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, does not address the unique intercaste, intracaste and inter-religion aspect of social boycott. Intercaste, now there is Prevention of Atrocities Act, fine, but if there is an intercaste marriage, then what? तो कौन सा सेक्शन? और इंटरकास्ट मैरिज की वजह से आपको सोशल बायकॉट किया, आप कौन इस पे एक्ट लगाएगा? अब इसमें कौन सा लॉ? प्रिवेंशन ऑफ एट्रोसिटीज एक्ट तो चलेगा नहीं, क्योंकि एक अपर कास्ट है और एक लोअर कास्ट है. इंटर रिलीजन में क्या होगा? ये सोशल बायकॉट के लिए एड्रेस नहीं कर रहा है, समझ रहे हैं आप? द पॉइंट इज द प्रिवेंशन ऑफ एट्रोसिटीज एक्ट इज इंपॉर्टेंट, बट इट इज नॉट केटरिंग टू द नीड ऑफ सोशल बायकॉट. ओके, therefore persons affected by the social boycott intra-caste do not have recourse to justice under the Prevention of Atrocities Act, making it necessary for a specific social boycott law. Why? Again, I'm telling you, there are 2 points. First point, I hope you have understood. And the second point, because it does not address the issue of intercaste, intra-caste and inter-religion aspects of the social boycott. Okay. The existing Protection of Civil Rights Act 1955 too lacks the comprehensive necessary to tackle social boycotts, as it only deals with discrimination, ostracism, and boycotts arising from the practice of untouchability. So this is just there, and there is just, and the act provides for very minimal punishment for the crime of social boycotts, ranging from 1 month to 6 months, which is very, very small. Now there is another point. Maharashtra in 2016 passed the Social Boycott Act, which spoke about under the Maharashtra Act 2016, social boycott has been rendered illegal and punishable under the law with an imprisonment of up to 3 years or a fine of up to 1 lakh or both of the perpetrator and his or her accomplices. So that is what Maharashtra's example you can write down. In 2016, Maharashtra passed a separate law against the social boycott, which is requirement of other things. Now, it also specifically, the specific part of this act is that it also specifically enumerates many situations and forms in which social boycotts might be imposed, such as ostracization. Ostracization means बहिष्कार, समाज में से निकाल देना, that is ostracization. Refusal to allow religious or caste-based ceremonies, okay, the denial of use of schools, hospitals, burial grounds, etc. to Dalits. So Maharashtra's act can be given as an example. Okay. Now the potential challenge, constitutional challenges. The potential, if there has to be a challenge, then the challenge will be only on the grounds of Article 25 and Article 26 of the Indian Constitution, where it is right to violation, grounds of the violation of right to freedom of religion under Article 25 and 26. And there was a very significant case where Supreme Court has altogether denied it. So we don't need to worry about that. It was in a Bohari case, that because of the religious practices, they wanted to follow something. We don't need that case reference. Sometimes, again, I can take a separate lecture on that. But an interesting case that was. So it can be, but then we have to understand that it cannot happen. Now the conclusion, as it is, ready-made conclusion I am giving you. Moral vigilantism to enforce caste prejudices that impinge upon the civil, social, and political right of individual has no place in today's India, and in fact never did. I'm giving you, again I'm saying, I'm giving you a ready-made conclusion. ऐसे होना, अगर आप इस तरह से लिख पाए तो आप यूपीएससी में टॉपर हैं. But again, I don't want at this level. I want at least 50% of this kind of writing can also help a lot when you write a conclusion. That's why this conclusion has been given to you. So repeating, I will read it as it is, and just if you have any doubt, do ask me. Moral vigilantism, because you all understand that social boycott is what? It is not legal. It is just a moral vigilantism that they try to enforce certain caste prejudices. Okay, so moral vigilantism to enforce caste prejudices that impinge upon the civil, social, and political rights of individual has no place in today's India, and in fact never did. It is imperative that ills of the caste system be eradicated, and the implementation of stringent social boycott legislation across India would be a right step in that direction. Social boycotts are a tool of oppression and severely impact the ideals of liberty and freedom of choice that are envisaged under the Constitution of India, and therefore wholly malefied and illegal. The universal principles of non-discrimination and equality must be India's guiding lights in combating this purulent disease. Not only does the state have to enact laws that protect Dalits, but it must also ensure that its own institutions are not themselves acting as agents of this oppression. The failure of the government of India in prohibiting and penalizing the perpetrators of the social boycotts is a failure of both its moral duty to its citizens as well as its obligation under both national and international laws. Anything that you ask? Any questions? Okay, if no questions, then today
Hello.
we, yes.
Sir, म्हणजे one reason for this is that our state has not reached to the ground level. I mean, to the
Okay.
village level or to the
State
even.
institutions, you mean police and all those institutions, you mean to say, right?
Yes.
Yes, that is the point. You see, there is a nexus. Whenever there is an atrocity at the level of caste-based atrocities are there. What we find is there is a certain kind of nexus between the people and the institution, and that's why what we have to look into is that the state should try to protect it. What is the, like for example, a police person, his duty is towards the Constitution of India and not to someone else. Okay, so that is the problem that we are many a times basically face. So it is, I agree with you. There are a lot of issues, complicated issues, and that's why we are saying that what we need is we need a more stringent law to avoid these kind of social boycotts. As the lecture was specifically regarding the social boycotts, we have to decide for whom we are working. Like tomorrow, if you are going to be the bureaucrat, you have to decide for whom you are working. Okay, you are accountable to whom? To a politician, to a village headman, or to a constitution of India. And that decides. If you are able to decide that, that's fine. That solves all the problem.
Yes.
Okay, just yesterday I mentioned about that book lecture, but could not get the time. So I think on Sunday we will have a bit of larger session on that, and on Sunday we'll discuss that. But for today we'll stop over here. If you have any questions, you can ask. Else we stop over here. And from Monday we are beginning our 200 days. Till we have 200 days, we have from my side 1 month has gone, but still starting from Monday till 20th of June 2021. I will be there with you for the prelims if you believe in me, and we'll continue with that. So, see you then. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Just one more thing, if you like, do share, do subscribe to YouTube channel, and please tell to your friends if you like. No forceful. Okay, thank you.